Gambia is a party to most of the multilateral environmental agreements, such as the Biodiversity Convention, the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change, UN Convention to Combat Desertification, and a whole host of other environment-related multilateral agreements. The Gambia was admitted into the GEF Small Grant family. This was in 2008, 2009. In 2010, 2011, the Oyster Women's Association happened to be one of the projects that submitted an application through the able leadership of Fatou Jangha.
I've helped women in projects, capacity building and all that. So I said, okay, why can't I do it in my country? Passing by the roadside where the Oyster women are, I realized that these women were there ever since I was a child. And under the same conditions, the same environment, there has never been any improvement.
I have been working for 50 years in this oyster business, but I still do not have my own house. Instead, I am renting. Even the boats we use for the oyster fishing are rented.
Years ago, when there were no boats, we went oyster fishing, wading through the waters on foot. Then there were a lot of oysters nearby in shallow waters. Now, to catch oysters, you have to go further in the waters, and if you don't have a boat, you cannot go. This means you can leave your home to walk, but have no boat to do so. So sometimes you have to wait for the fishermen to return from fishing and then rent their boats to go oyster fishing. 2 or 3 of us share a boat. Therefore, if you have to go far to catch oysters, you cannot walk your way through the waters as it is very deep.
I started this business whilst I was going to school as a child. It was from these earnings that I paid my school fees. No parent paid my school fees because at the time, people did not know what education was. However, no matter how small the amount, I made a living from the oyster trade.
I started this business since I got married and my kids started going to school. I pay their school fees, provide their daily lunch and clothing for them. I also help with their feeding to support my husband's contribution to the upkeep of the family.
I've been in this place for almost 20 years now. Since I was young, I used to come here and help my mother. Whenever she's cooking the oysters, we used to come and help her. This way she normally get money to pay our school fees since we were young.
My name is Caroline Sambu, and I normally come here to peel out oysters. I can remember when I was in grade 2. I normally come here to peel out oysters.
The first thing we did was we had a fundraising activity to raise funds to register ourselves as a CBO, community based project. And based on that, the other communities heard about me, and then they came in and approached to say they would like to be part of TRI.
Before, people were not as aware as they are now about the oyster trade. Now there is awareness as we have a group and our members have been exposed to the media. This was not the case previously, but this has enabled us to help each other, bring good to ourselves and form an association. We have a president to lead us as well.
We have our small groups, but now we all belong to the Tri Oyster Association. It is made up of many oyster clusters in the country. So all our groups are part of this wider association.
Before we just worked anyhow and did not recognize the business aspect of our work. So when we worked, we took the money we had and spent it. We did not save or do anything with what we got. This was a great loss and disadvantage to us. For the years I spent oyster fishing, if I had known what I now know from the Tri Oyster Association, I would have been successful by now, and we would have been talking about something else.
Tri Association will help us develop, because what we envisage is being done and of good to us. We are not going backward.
With the advent of Tri Oyster Association, we have gained a lot. We are now receiving help externally. We now have guests who sometimes visit us and provide us with support that benefits us. The association is trying to provide a market for our oysters to be sold, as we have a problem with this.
If you bring your oysters to the market and it sells quickly, you see the benefit. However, sometimes you bring oysters and they cannot sell quickly. This can be up to 2 days. When this happens, we throw them away or at best we dry them. When we dry them, their value depreciates. Because the oysters are easily perishable, if they are not sold quickly, it is a loss to us, and that poses immediate difficulties to us, since we do not own storage or refrigeration facilities. We go to our neighbors and ask them to preserve our oysters in their fridges until the next day. Once refrigerated overnight, they have to be sold more or less immediately, otherwise they start becoming slimy and get spoiled.
Because of lack of access to refrigeration, you have to dry them. We can't keep the oysters for long, so we dry them, otherwise they get spoiled. When the oysters are wet and fresh, we get up to 20 cups. But when they are dry, we only get 5 cups from the original 20 cups of wet fresh oysters.
5 cups. Oysters are perishable foodstuff. So what they do is, after the end of the day, by the end of the day, they take the oysters and take them home and dry, and then they can't do anything about it. But now, with the national recognition we have created, they can now sell at a higher fee. It's still not what we want, but we are now developing slowly. The price they are asking for is quite a lot, and some of them were able to pay school fees for their children, which they couldn't do before, and they were able to save money in the banks, which they never could do before.
We never thought we will sell a cup of oyster for even $10. Now the price has gone up to $15 to $20.
I am thanking God and Try Oyster Association. The right time is now and has come. Now all of us have opened bank accounts and are saving. Try Oyster Association is also training and supporting us. God has helped us put in place good things, such as how we should measure the sale of our oysters, and also how we should know the best time for harvesting of oysters. We are now well informed and able to do this properly.
Many of us who did not agree to the new ways we were taught for oyster protection and harvesting have now seen the benefits of this. Because of the rules put into place for protection of oyster harvesting, we get bigger oysters through timely harvesting. So when you display the oysters for sale because they are bigger, customers do not pass by and not buy them. Before, we were not allowing the oysters to reach maturity, and we were harvesting and selling small oysters. Now we allow them to grow, and we do that right across our communities. We do not harvest them when we are not supposed to. If anyone does, you are fined.
Before, we used to harvest oysters anyhow and at any time. Whenever one felt they had financial constraints, they will harvest. But since the advent of Try Oyster Association, we have a time to stop harvesting. During the time we close down and do not harvest, Try Oyster Association loans us money for other productive activities.
Now at the center, we teach them alternative livelihoods, because it was a big issue. If we had to stop the mangroves, then what do we do for them?
During the off-season, we are taught tie and dye skills. We produce materials which we sell, and when sold, the exact amount loaned is repaid and goes back to the association.
We are given a loan of $1,000 or $2,000 during the off-season from Try Association to do other businesses like buying and selling of fish or vegetables. Try Association also trains us to produce soap, handmade bags, as well as training our children in tie and dye skills.
We want them to own homes like everybody else. I mean, why not? Because they work so hard, they go into water, they fetch the oysters. It's a very tedious job, very, very tedious job. And we don't see any reason why they cannot be like me and you. So then we gave them loans. We acquire some little bit of money, it's not much, a little bit of money, and we train them as to how they can develop businesses, how they can go and sell, make petty business during the off-season. And now they're quite happy. They're happy to stop the oyster harvesting so they can do this kind of businesses.
22,000 mangrove plants have been planted. The conservation of this area and the sustainable use of the resources for local communities. Certainly the aim of the project is to conserve natural resources, enhance the livelihoods of the communities. The environment and economic benefits as well as the social benefits of this project include increase in the mangrove cover of the Tanbi wetlands will result in increase in the provision of a carbon sink, so that really the carbon, the mangroves can absorb the CO2.
They are now aware of the environment, which they really didn't understand. All what they were interested in was just to get oysters, and then they chop the mangroves. But now they know the importance. With training, they now know the importance of the mangrove and the effect it does to the environment and the climate change. And so now they appreciate it, and they protect the mangrove themselves, and they do reforesting of the mangroves. They replant the mangroves during the rainy season on their own.
The constraints we have is with materials and tools to make work easier. We have no boats, we lack shade and shelter from the sun or rain, no toilets and lack of access to fresh water at our oyster sites. During the rain, we walk under the downpour.
When it is sunny, we sometimes use clothes to provide shades. We put sticks in the ground to create space so we can hang our clothes over them and provide shelter. Sometimes we have to work under the sun peeling oysters with our children, who become uncomfortable and cry because of the heat from the sun. If we had proper shelter, our children could stay under the shelter and not provide added burden to our work. We would therefore appreciate some help in this area, as it will be most beneficial. The smoke affects our health, and we normally get burns, especially to our eyes, from shell splinters and the liquid that spurts from the oysters whilst roasting them.
When we go to catch oysters, we go with bare hands and feet sometimes and risk having cuts from the sharp oyster shells in the mangroves. So we need gloves, shoes and life jackets, especially when the waters become rougher and it is windy.
We had life jackets, but they're all worn out now, so we are in need of new ones. When it is windy, because of the small size of our boats, it affects us especially after catching oysters on our way back home. Some of our boats capsize, and we have occasionally had to save our colleagues from drowning. Sometimes, some of our colleagues drown, and that is why we go out in groups to support each other.
It's just so heartbreaking to see these things happening to the women. But as I said, we have just started. We have started, and I think people will come out to give us help. Now, like for example, when they go into the water, these are women, women getting into the mud, and the water gets all the way up to above their waist and all that. They are prone to all sorts of infections and all that. And they also, when they go to the sea, when they go fetching, looking for oysters, they are in small dog canoes, which is it's very dangerous, but that's what they have. So, and some of them, a lot of them don't own these canoes. They rent from the men. But finally, I would like to say thank you and to all these people who have helped us so far. That is, as you can see, the Jeff Global Environmental Funding and the UNDP and the Banafa project, which is funded by the USAID, the People of America, through this Coastal Research Center of the Rhode Island University. They have given us seed money for us to start up, and we're quite grateful to them. And also, to be really honest, we are very grateful to our government, Gambia government, who have now given us the opportunity to explore our limits. We've got the exclusive rights. We've got a co-management plan together with the Parks and Wildlife, Department of Parks and Wildlife, the NEA, and then we have with the Forestry Department, we have come together to agree on giving the women the exclusive right in the Tanbi wetland Ramsar area, which is a protected area. It's very important.